For over a century, Japan was a land of chaos. The Sengoku Jidai, or Age of Warring States, saw brother turn against brother, and warlords tear the country apart in a relentless quest for the shogunate. But amidst the smoke and blood, one man was playing a much longer game. His name was Tokugawa Ieyasu. Unlike his peers who burned with impulsive fire, Ieyasu was like a patient stone in a rushing river. He knew that to conquer Japan, he first had to conquer himself, surviving a childhood of hostage-taking and political betrayal. Ieyasu's journey began in the shadow of giants. He served alongside Oda Nobunaga, the brutal unifier who sought to crush all opposition underfoot. Ieyasu watched, learned, and waited, knowing that Nobunaga's fire might eventually burn itself out. When Nobunaga was betrayed and forced to commit seppuku, the power vacuum was filled by Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Again, Ieyasu chose cooperation over immediate conflict. He accepted a move to the swampy, undeveloped Kanto region, far from the capital. While Hideyoshi spent his resources on failed invasions of Korea, Ieyasu turned the swamps into gold. He built Edo, modern-day Tokyo, into a massive power base. He was building an engine of wealth and loyalty while the rest of the world looked the other way. Hideyoshi's death in 1598 changed everything. On his deathbed, he begged Ieyasu to protect his young son. But Ieyasu saw a different path for Japan, a path that didn't lead back to the chaos of child rulers and region squabbles. The tensions culminated in the year 1600 at the Battle of Sekigahara. It was the battle for the realm. Over 160,000 samurai faced each other on a foggy morning, representing the eastern and western armies of Japan. Ieyasu didn't just win with swords, he won with psychology. He had spent years subverting the loyalty of the western lords. When the battle hung in the balance, he turned his cannons on his own hesitant allies, forcing them to choose a side. The betrayal worked. The western army collapsed, and by sunset, Ieyasu was the undisputed master of Japan. He had done what Nobunaga and Hideyoshi could not. He had secured a victory that would last not years, but centuries. In 1603, the emperor granted him the title of shogun. Ieyasu established the Tokugawa Shogunate, moved the capital to Edo, and began the meticulous process of locking Japan into a state of absolute, unbreakable peace. He implemented the Sankin Kotai system, forcing lords to live in Edo every other year. This kept them under his thumb and drained their treasuries on travel, ensuring they never had the money or the time to plan a rebellion. Ieyasu also realized that outside influences could destabilize his peace. He began the policy of sakoku, or the closed country. For over 200 years, Japan would be largely cut off from the rest of the world, fostering a unique, undisturbed culture. Under the Tokugawa peace, the samurai found themselves in a strange position. With no wars to fight, they became administrators, poets, and scholars. The sword remained a symbol of their soul, but their daily lives were defined by brush and ink. Ieyasu Eda's final challenge was the siege of Osaka in 1615. The remnants of the Toyotomi clan were gathering in the massive fortress. Ieyasu, now an old man, personally led the campaign to erase the last threat to his family's rule. The castle fell, and the Toyotomi line was extinguished. Ieyasu had finally closed the book on the Sengoku Jidai. He died shortly after, leaving behind a blueprint for a society that would remain stable for 15 generations. He was deified as Toshodai Gongen, the great incarnation who illuminates the East. His final resting place at Nikko Toshogu is a riot of gold and carving, a testament to the man who traded the fire of war for the cold, hard peace of the shogunate. Ieyasu's influence is everywhere in modern Japan, from the layout of Tokyo to the meticulous social structures and the value placed on patience and perseverance. He didn't just win a war, he designed a nation. In pop culture, Ieyasu is often depicted as the master strategist, the old badger who could outwait and outthink anyone. He appears in countless films, anime and games, always the man who knows that victory belongs to those who can endure. He once said, "Life is like a long journey with a heavy pack. Do not hurry." Ieyasu carried that pack through the bloodiest century in Japan's history. And because he didn't hurry, he reached a destination that changed the world forever. The story of Tokugawa Ieyasu is a reminder that power isn't always about the loudest shout or the sharpest blade, Sometimes the greatest conquest is the one that brings the fighting to an end. This was the man who ended the age of war. To understand the depth of Ieyasu's patience, we have to look back at the most famous anecdote in Japanese history, the three unifiers and the cuckoo bird. It perfectly encapsulates the three men who made modern Japan. Nobunaga said, "If the cuckoo doesn't sing, kill it." Hideyoshi said, "If the cuckoo doesn't sing, make it sing." But Ieyasu simply smiled and said, "If the cuckoo doesn't sing, wait for it." This wasn't just a poem, it was a survival strategy. Ieyasu was born into the Matsudaira clan, a small, vulnerable house squeezed between the powerful Oda and Imagawa clans. To survive, his father had to send him away as a bargaining chip. During his years as a hostage, Ieyasu learned the art of shinobu, to endure. He learned to read the moods of his captors and to hide his own ambitions so deeply that no one suspected the lion growing in their midst. His first break came at the Battle of Okehazama. His master, Imagawa Yoshimoto, was killed in a surprise attack by Oda Nobunaga. In the chaos, Ieyasu did the unthinkable. He declared his independence and reclaimed his family's ancestral home. But independence brought new dangers. Nobunaga was a terrifying neighbor. Instead of fighting him, Ieyasu proposed an alliance. For the next 20 years, he would serve as Nobunaga's shield, protecting his flank while Nobunaga marched toward Kyoto. This alliance was tested in fire at the Battle of Mikatagahara. Ieyasu faced the legendary Takeda Shingen, the greatest cavalry commander in Japan. For the first and only time in his life, Ieyasu's patience broke, and he suffered a crushing defeat. Legend says Ieyasu was so terrified that he lost control of his bowels during the retreat. Instead of hiding it, he ordered an artist to paint him in that moment of shame. He kept a Nigarizao portrait his entire life to remind himself of the cost of impatience. He never made that mistake again. When Nobunaga was killed at Honnoji, Ieyasu didn't rush to avenge him. He stayed in his own lands, securing his borders and watching as Hideyoshi eliminated the other rivals. He knew his time was coming. Hideyoshi eventually tried to crush Ieyasu at the Battle of Komaki and Nagakute. They fought to a stalemate, but Hideyoshi realized he couldn't defeat Ieyasu on the field. He offered a peace treaty and even gave Ieyasu his own sister in marriage. Then came the Hojo campaign. Hideyoshi ordered Ieyasu to trade his ancestral lands for the Kanto region. It was a move designed to weaken him, but Ieyasu saw it as an opportunity. He founded Edo and turned a backwater into the heart of Japan. When Hideyoshi died, he left a council of 5 regents to rule until his son came of age. Ieyasu was the most powerful among them. Within months, the council had split into 2 factions, and the stage was set for the final reckoning. Sekigahara wasn't just a battle of armies, it was a battle of information. Ieyasu spent weeks writing letters, promising land and titles to those who would switch sides. He won the war before the first spear was even thrust. At the height of the battle, Ieyasu's center was crumbling. He ordered his men to bring his stool to the very front of the line. He sat there, in plain view of the enemy, and calmly adjusted his helmet. That act of courage stabilized his entire army. After the victory, Ieyasu didn't rest. He spent the next 15 years codifying every aspect of Japanese life. He created the 4-class system: samurai, farmers, artisans, and merchants. A hierarchy that would remain unchanged for 2 centuries. His greatest fear was the return of civil war. He banned the building of new castles and ordered the destruction of unnecessary ones. He turned Japan from a land of fortresses into a land of cities, focusing the nation's energy on commerce and culture. Ieyasu's final testament was his legacy of Ieyasu, a set of instructions for his descendants. He warned them that the key to keeping power was to never become arrogant and to always remember the hardships of the common people. The Tokugawa peace, known as the Pax Tokugawa, allowed for a massive explosion in the arts. Ukiyo prints, kabuki theater, and haiku poetry all flourished because Ieyasu gave Japan the one thing it hadn't had in centuries: time. When we think of samurai today, we often think of the warrior, but the true samurai of the Tokugawa era was a man of peace. Ieyasu redefined honor not as dying for a lord, but as living to build a better world for everyone. Tokugawa Ieyasu started as a hostage and ended as a god. He is the man who turned the red fields of Japan green again. His story is a testament to the power of the long view and the peace that only patience can build.